Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Basic Nation Analysis, and today we're trying a little bit of a different format. We're analyzing, doing a little bit of analysis of early age Xibalba, which is a very interesting nation. A lot of very interesting strengths, a lot of pretty well-defined weaknesses. So what I've done here is I've actually played through a year of expansion with early age Xibalba, and so I'm going to be showing off the Pretender chassis and the design that I've used for that, as well as talk about what it is that has worked and what it is that doesn't work about early age Xibalba. You can see my Pretender right here is named a Snake Skirt Long Jacket, which is of course a cake reference. And this is the Empire of Xibalba at the moment. It is turn 12. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 provinces. Perfectly respectable. I only have one fort actually built, but I have a second one building down here that will be done in 3 turns. So I'm not doing too bad. My research is abysmal. I have practically no research because I've been focusing all of my income and time on expansion in order to get these 18 provinces. I took an Awake Expander God. This is the Teoto Inan, which is one of the chassis that Xibalba and Mictlan have access to. Starts with a bunch of Horned Serpents, so a bunch of chaff at the start of the battle, and I've given her Earth 5, Nature 7, and Blood 4. The Bless is Fire Shock Resistance, HP plus 1, Regeneration, and Strength plus 2. Which may seem like an interesting choice, but I'll tell you why that was. The Regeneration, obviously, is to make her a competent expander. With Regeneration and her Protection 17 from the Earth magic, the Teoto Inan can expand fairly effectively. She spawns a whole bunch of chaff, and she has a bunch of attacks. She has a claw attack, she has 2 venomous fangs, which also inflict death poison, and she has the Snake Skirt, which gets 5 attacks of its own. And she has quite a high attack value as well as decent defense value. The Protection 17 from the Earth magic is high enough to let her be somewhat durable, and then the Regeneration lets her regenerate through pretty much anything. So we can watch her battle here, and we can see how that goes. In her Dominion, the Teoto Inan is perfectly capable of fighting through most independent provinces. She's going to cast Personal Regeneration and then go into attack. So in her Dominion, of course, she's regenerating at, well, she's actually outside Dominion right now. I guess she didn't spread Dominion with her like I thought. But she's still regenerating 11 hit points a turn, or 9 hit points a turn, and she'll start once she gets down low enough. So the Horned Serpents are mainly dying off because they're not very defensive, but they're providing enough chaff to let the Teoto Inan kill off small numbers of the enemy at a time. She doesn't actually have an attack animation. Things just die around her. In any case, she was not particularly injured. She is actually regenerating above her max, I think. She wasn't terribly injured during that fight in any case, and she chases the enemy off the field. Now, Xibalba's expansion is based on a couple of their units that they have. All of Xibalba's units are garbage, individually. The Xibalban warriors, they cost almost nothing, especially in resources. Their recruitment points are very low, not quite as low as slaves, but quite low. And their stats are garbage. Low strength, 0 protection, 0. They have no damage mitigation whatsoever. Attack and defense skill mediocre, precision awful, morale low. So Xibalban warriors are garbage units. The only they have a couple of redeeming factors. The first, of course, is that they're cheap as hell. The second is that they can be recruited in all forests and all caves. Always. So you can, when you capture forests, you can immediately start pumping out Xibalban warriors from them, and they're cheap enough that even a crappy forest province can get you 5 or 6. Like, this is a pretty crappy province, and it can get me 5 or 6. Even this province can still get me 4 per turn. And you can also recruit Batab, which are your national command unit / stealth unit, because all Zots are also stealthy. So Zots, your basic units here, the Xibalban warriors, which are the Zots, they're all stealthy. They're all stealth 40, which is a nice little Benny as well. So you've got these cheap as shit, crappy units that fly, so you can use them to attack rear. They hit decently hard because they have these obsidian club swords, which have a lot of damage and are two-handed. So despite their low strength, they actually do inflict damage. And that's all. They have no other redeeming qualities. From your forts, you can also recruit scorpions. You can recruit large scorpions, which are tiny and worthless. You can recruit giant scorpions, which are slightly larger, can actually do damage because their sting is AP, and they inflict poison. And you can recruit Xibalban scorpions, which are actually reasonably effective. They have 2 attacks, okay protection, slightly above human hit points, cost almost no resources, 15 gold. You can only recruit 10 of them per turn from each, but you can recruit them from each fort. So I can pump out 10 Xibalban Scorpions here. That's a reasonable amount of recruitment. They're like they're usable. You do have an armored Xibalban infantry unit, the Xibalban Guard. It costs twice as many recruitment points as a regular Xibalban, and there's not a whole lot of benefit to it. Like, they do get 8 protection, but they still have no head protection, and their attack skill goes up by 1. That's the difference, but it requires extra gold, a few more resources, and it doubled the recruitment points, so you can't recruit as many Xibalban Guards. Now, that's not to say this is a terrible idea necessarily. Sometimes you need units that are very slightly tougher, but they're sort of an awkward middle ground. What you really should be recruiting from your forts, in my mind, is Scorpions and Sun Guides from the capital. Sun Guides are the Xibalban Sacred. They're not necessarily impressive. They're not fantastic units, but they are the best units you have. Okay protection, high damage from the Obsidian Sharp Blades, which are also magical, and high attack value. They do have high encumbrance, but you can get around that because they're not fighting for all that many rounds at a time. So the Sun Guides are basically your anti-giant unit, or your anti-enemy sacred elite unit, or your anti-ghost unit because they have the magical attacks. Sun Guides are your specialist shock troopers that you deploy when your regular units are just not going to cut the mustard. And in that role, they can serve quite well. This is the reason for having a little bit of strength in my bless. 2 extra points of strength increases the damage of the shard blades up over 20. Since they are two-handed weapons, I think it kicks it up to 22. Let me actually double check, because there was a fight down here in Old Land that involved a few Sun Guides. You can see they got 7 kills. So basically, we've got all our units in a blob over here. And what's going to happen is we're going to cast Divine Blessing. The Scorpions advance. The Xibalban warriors are waiting at the moment. So we've got this Sun Guide. It kicks their damage up to 21, which is quite high. If you have more strength, of course, it increases their damage more effectively. And what's going to happen here is the Scorpions will advance towards the enemy infantry while the Zots are waiting. Then the Zots will jump down to attack the rear, hopefully hit the command while the enemy are distracted, and then the enemy rout because all of their command has been murdered by bat people. This process takes casualties, a lot of casualties, because Xibalban warriors are garbage. I've said that before, and I'll say it again. They're crap. They're terrible. And so you take a lot of casualties, even in a fight like that was really easy, frankly. But you can do it, because Xibalban warriors are also extremely replaceable. I'm recruiting them from 4 places right now, and as long as I keep recruiting Batabs and shuffling Batabs around, or Batabob, Ob is the pluralization of these Zots names, incidentally. As long as I keep recruiting Batabob and sending them around, I can have a constant stream of replacement bats shuffling to the front, and so I can keep up my expansion speed. Also, of course, Snakeskirt Long Jacket is an extremely effective expander, actually. Possibly one of like 2 or 3 Titan chassis that is an effective expander. She works in a way that most Titan chassis do not. So, she has consistently, for these 12 turns, she's taken 11 provinces. She consistently expanded 1 province per turn. She took all of this down here. Actually, she took like that all down here and then came back and also took that province. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I guess she's only taken 9 provinces, but still, only this was actually done by the Zots. All of this was Snakeskirt Long Jacket. So in terms of expansion, Xibalbans can do it. Xibalbans can be competitive in expansion. They can make reasonable speed. It comes at a price, which is that you lose a lot of infantry doing it. So you need to cultivate the Soviet mentality. Just, you're not going to care about your Zots warriors, your Xibalban warriors. They're going to die, and you're going to let them die. Your elites are the Xibalban Scorpions. Xibalban Scorpions are fairly reasonable units. They do a lot of damage. They have double attacks. They can be used pretty effectively. And the Scorpion Tail has the death poison as well, which is nice. And of course, you also have the Sun Guides, and you'll only have a few Sun Guides unless you happen to land next to Hinnom or something, and then you'll have as many Sun Guides as you can afford. So, my Pretender design, talked about her paths: Earth 5, Nature 7, Blood 4. I took 6. Here, yeah, I took 6 Dominion, and you've seen my bless. For the Dominion, to pay for all of this, I trashed Turmoil and Sloth. And I did that because my units are so cheap I can afford to replace them anyway. The Scorpions, these Scorpions cost almost nothing, 2 recruitment points. My Zots take 6 recruitment points. The Xibalban Scorpions take 15 recruitment points, and so they are the only ones that actually limit me in recruitment points. You can definitely trash productivity. You can trash Sloth 3 instantly as soon as you choose Xibalba. You may not want to trash Turmoil quite this far if you want to be recruiting, if you want to be sure that you can keep recruiting Scorpions, because like over here I only have 85 recruitment points, so I can only get 5 Scorpions, and then I have to recruit something else. Then I have to recruit like 5 giant Scorpions, which are pretty much a waste because they're awful. They don't hardly accomplish anything. In terms of mages, Xibalba is a blood nation. Xibalba is primarily blood. And the reason it's primarily blood is because you have the Onaqui. The Onaqui, 70 gold, 1 blood, 1 holy, and Blood Searcher 1. Effectively, this guy is blood level 2 for the purpose of searching for blood slaves right out of the box. So he's a blood 2 mage when he's site searching for 70 gold. And he's sacred, so his upkeep is very, very low. Onaqis make Xibalba a fantastic blood nation. In addition, Xibalba has a number of specialist of national blood summons that are shared with Mictlan. They can bind beast bats, they can bind jaguar fiends, the Ozelotls, and they can contact Onaqui, as well as they can cast Reign of Jaguars to get a ton of Ozelotls. Ozelotls are sacred flying jaguars with multiple attacks, so blessing them is also incredibly effective. On top of that, Xibalba has a number of national spells that relate to the souls. So Break the First Soul is a national spell that causes profuse bleeding, which is an effect that you can get from some wounds that is very, very deadly. Meanwhile, Gift of the First Soul gives you regeneration. You can just give regeneration to anyone who isn't undead or inanimate, which is kind of fantastic. You also have the other soul spells are in, you can summon Sacred Scorpions, which are an even larger, even more powerful scorpion. I haven't researched and cast that yet. You can summon Jaguars, that's shared with Mictlan. That summons 17 double attack Sacreds on land for 25 nature gems. They're not very defensive, but if you have a strong bless, it can be very much worthwhile. And of course I do have a strong bless. Nothing special is an alteration. But the soul spells are actually really nice. You also have this spell, Theft of the Sun, at enchantment level 8, which is very cool and thematic. It's not super, super useful, but it's very cool and thematic. Because what you do is when you get a very powerful Death Fire Mage, and you literally steal the sun, so everything in the world is dark, which doesn't bother you because all Zots can see in the dark. And you get 10 fire and 5 astral gems every month. And the Sun Guides gain Sun Awe. Gain awe above ground, which is really kind of cool. Thaumaturgy is where most of your special spells are, the second, third, and fourth souls. So you've got the first in blood, and then in Thaumaturgy, you've got the third soul, which causes fatigue, the second soul, which gives a limp, just straight up gives a guy a limp, which is kind of cool, and fourth soul, which gives the enemy bad luck forever. It's a curse. And then the gifts, the gift is Reinvigoration, third soul. Second soul is Resistance to Blunt Damage. And fourth soul is Luck. You can cast Luck on somebody with Gift of the Fourth Soul, which is another really, really cool spell. So those are actually, like, some of those spells, like the fourth soul and the first soul, are SC buffing spells. The Gift of the First Soul to give you regeneration and luck, those are fantastic buffing spells. But so, Xibalba has a lot of blood magic. They also have a little bit of other magic. The Chillons have a little bit of death and a little bit of earth. They can summon the Sacred Scorpions. The Onaqui, we talked about, blood 1. The Akin have fire and then 1 random out of earth, death, and blood. Not nearly so useful. However, the blood randoms you can link into a Sabbath to cast powerful fire spells. The Aits are blood death crosspath with a random. These guys are very useful. First of all, you can use them to get air and earth into your communions, your Sabbaths rather, and some of them can skill spam and some of them are blood 2. Your bigger mages here are the Camazotz, which are Death 2, Blood 1, plus a random. These guys are very, very good. They are unfortunately slow to recruit. So there is that. But they're flying stealthy skill spammers, which is never bad. And on top of that, you can boost them up pretty easily to summon vampires. Your most powerful... well, okay, you've got the Onaqui. You've also got the Akinkanek, which I can't pronounce hardly. Fire Death Crosspath, primarily. This is the guy that you may use eventually to cast Theft of the Sun if you boost and empower him up quite a bit. Or, of course, you can just use a Pretender if you've designed a Pretender to do that. I did not, obviously, but you can design a Pretender to cast Theft of the Sun if you want. I wouldn't recommend focusing on it, because honestly, it's not a very efficient spell. But in any case, these guys, especially the Blood randoms, you can link in to cast spells in Sabbaths. You can use them to cast fire spells, summon fire elementals, that kind of thing. But honestly, you're not going to use fire magic for a lot, so I wouldn't pay much attention to these guys because they are capital only. And your capital only is reserved for the Onaqui. Yes, Xibalba gets to just straight up recruit Onaqui. They're horrendously expensive. I think at this point they're the third most expensive commander in the game. Behind Laestrygonian Tyrants and behind... I've forgotten their name, but the Nazcan mummies. The royal mummies. I've forgotten what the actual name for mummy is. But Onaqui are flying, stealthy, demons. They have Blood Searcher 2, so they count as Blood 5 for Blood Searching. And they are vampire summoners. They have blood, they have death, they also have nature. And they can random fire, which isn't very useful, but any of these other three randoms are very useful. So Onaqis are incredibly powerful mages. They also start with Beast Bats, and they can summon Beast Bats. So they are hugely, hugely powerful and important to you. Unfortunately, they're expensive. You're not going to recruit many. But, of course, later on, you can also summon them. The summoned Onaqis have slightly different paths. I think slightly fewer paths. But still, for 101 Blood Slaves, yeah, absolutely. Summon Onaqis all day, every day. Xibalba's strategy largely revolves, therefore, around blood magic. They have these very efficient blood searchers. They can ratchet up blood magic pretty quickly, especially if they take magic scales, which I did not. I took Death 3. I'm sorry. I said exactly the opposite. I took Growth 3, Heat 3, because Zots are cold-blooded, so the last thing you want is to ever fight in the cold with them. Turmoil and Sloth, in order to pay for my Heavy Bless on an Awake Expander. But the Awake Expander is extremely important to Zot's strategy, because remember, without the Awake Expander, I would just be this. On turn 12, I would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 provinces, which is not nearly enough. I could have been a little bit more effective with my Zot's expansion if I'd been paying closer attention, but even so, Xibalba without an Awake Expander is in a dangerous and precarious situation because the Zots are not scary, and their expansion will be somewhat slow. So you really do want an Awake Expander. The Tityo Inan is one possibility. The Hunbalam, the one Jaguar, is another possibility, although I like her less because she doesn't have Earth and Nature cross paths. The Hunbalam only has Fire and Blood, which makes it a lot harder to get a really effective Expander Bless. But in any case, I think the Tito Inan is the most effective option for Mictlan. But, you know, your mileage may vary. In any case, when it comes to Xibalban mages, your main recruit in a lot of places for a long time is going to be the Onaqui, because the Onaqui is an effective researcher, is very price efficient because they're sacred, and they are your main blood searchers, so you're going to want a lot of Onaqui. Once you have your Onaqui, the Camazotz is going to be your next expander. You can recruit them anywhere. They are slow to recruit, but they're not terribly expensive. 4 paths for 160 gold is cheap. That's efficient. They are old. That's a little bit worrisome, but they are blood, so you can blood feast with them if you want them to be not old. That won't be a problem. And, of course, they are also efficient blood searchers, but more importantly, they're stealthy flying skill spammers. And some of them random Death 3. So when they random Death 3, you can force them a staff, kick up to Death 4, now you're in the money. Camazotz are very, very important to your strategy. Likewise, having a few Onaqui around is very important to your strategy. You do want some, not Scorpion Trainers, you do want some Chilans to summon the Sacred Scorpions, because the Sacred Scorpions are pretty good and they're not very expensive. But generally speaking, you're going to want a lot of Camazotz, you're going to want a lot of Onaqui. Everything else very situational. You're not necessarily going to recruit a lot of the other mages. Like the Ak-in, you may never recruit. There's often not much of a point for Ak-in. You might recruit a few to have, like, get a blood random if you want fire spells in your Sabbaths, but let's be honest, there aren't a whole lot of fire spells you really want or need. I suppose you could summon fire elementals, but like flaming arrows does not help you because your only ranged unit is the dart thrower, and darts suck. Heat from hell doesn't really help you because you're flying at high encumbrance, so you're already building up fatigue faster than most people, plus your units are shit. So, yeah, I don't know about all that. Comboing Heat from Hell and Rigor Mortis with Skeleспam can definitely work out for you, and so that's something you might do. But that will be a little bit later in the game kind of strategy. Early in the game, your research will be garbage, like this, because you're focusing on expanding. At this point, turn 12, I'm about ready to consolidate my borders, maybe cut these off, push in until I can find Hinnom. I wouldn't expect to be able to get this far without running into neighbors in an actual multiplayer game, by the way. I've got some neighbors there, but I would expect to be pretty much locked off at this point. So this is the point when I would kind of settle down and start pumping out mages for real serious research. Because, as Xibalba, you have a number of research priorities that are important. You do want Conjuration, because you want to be able to summon Sacred Scorpions and Jaguars to use your Heavy Bless. You want Blood. At the very least, you want Blood 2 pretty early, because you want to be able to bind Beast Bats. You also want Blood 4 fairly quickly after that, because Ocelotls are fantastic Sacred Summons. You also want Enchantment 5, because you are a Death Nation, because you have the Camazotz. So you want Horde of Skeletons, you want Pale Riders, and going in other schools, you obviously want the other big death spells, you know, where to go? Shadow Blast. Shadow Blast can do really good work for you. Rigor Mortis can do really good work for you. Darkness can do fantastic work for you because all your units are blind. So casting Darkness hurts you not at all. All of your units are blind or have perfect dark vision. So just cast Darkness and all of a sudden your shitty units are no worse than your enemy's units because all of your enemy's units are taking the Darkness penalty. That is one way to really even the scales. Early Age Xibalba's most dangerous point, therefore, is in early expansion. Because in early expansion, you're very vulnerable to bumps, you're very vulnerable to enemy monsters or enemy super combatants. So like, if you're next to Yomi, you might actually be in trouble. Because Dai-Oni with an Expander Bless can hack through basically unlimited numbers of Zots. Like, this army would just straight up bounce off a Dai-Oni. A single Dai-Oni with even a mediocre Bless would shrug off the Sun Guides and definitely shrug off the Xibalban Warriors and the Xibalban Scorpions and just mow through this whole army like a fat kid through cake. It would be nasty and ugly, and there would be nothing that could be done about it at this point except send Snake Skirt Long Jacket to try and finish him off. And that would be a little bit iffy, to be honest. Could probably do it with the Snake Skirt and all that. I think Tyoto Inan could kill a Dai-Oni with a Bless. But you see my point. In the early game, you're relying on these crappy units, and they're not going to take you very far. In the mid and late game, you start relying on your sacred summons, and those summons will take you very far because they are very good. Give me just a second here. I'll pull up another game that I've been working on, and I will show you what I mean. Okay, so here we are in a debug mode game where I've basically pulled up one casting of each of Xibalba's national summons, because Xibalba has a lot of national summons. First off, we've got the Ocelotls. These are the Jaguars that you get from the Summon Jaguars spell and the later Reign of Jaguars spell. Low protection but high magic resistance, perfect morale, 3 high damage, high effectiveness attacks, and of course they fly, and they're demons. So they're very good, very damaging. Get basically any kind of bless they can carry very well. A strength bless helps them. Defensive blesses help them, like hard skin or something. Fire shock resist obviously helps them. Regeneration helps them because they have a lot of hit points. If you want to, you can drop defensive spells on this guy's Chillons, or somebody with Earth networked into your Sabbath can drop Marble Warriors on Ocelotls, and that makes them terrifying, especially in conjunction with a Regeneration Bless. Jaguars, your lower level sacred that you get en masse, are basically ocelotls, but a little bit smaller and with only 2 attacks. They are also undisciplined, unfortunately, which makes them hard to bless unless you have your prophet. However, they likewise still have some dark vision. The sacred scorpions, these are the summoned scorpions. They're a lot like the scorpion beast summons, but a little bit better. High hit points, high protection, 2 attacks, including the scorpion tail with the death poison, and good attack skill. Also undisciplined, but worth summoning. And of course the beast bats. The beast bats are your smallest summoned sacred. Hit points and prot pretty much the same as the Jaguars. They only have 1 attack, but it has paralyzing poison, which does fatigue damage. This is very, very valuable. They have to do damage for it to work, so it doesn't work very reliably on people with high protection, but it can really, really shut down the enemy, especially if you've got a good bless on them. So the beast bats are good. You also have a number of national commander summons, which we can look at in research under conjuration. It doesn't tell us the levels, of course, because we are in debug mode, but the Balams are a nature summon, which summons Jaguars with a lot of magic paths, and the Chalks, which are an air summon, which likewise summons people with a lot of magic paths. And most interestingly, a lot of the Chalks, not all of the Chalks have blood, but they all have air, high-level air, and then a couple of other paths. The Balams have blood, as well as nature. So the Balam of the East has water magic. You can see that they all have different, they're all unique, and they're all different. So we can summon, I don't have enough gems to summon more Chalks, because I've spent some of my gems doing that. In any case, they all have different path combos. If you summon several of these guys, they will break you into every path. Now, it's a lot of gems. It's a big gem investment, because these are both high-level spells that cost a lot of gems, but they'll break you into pretty much every path. Also, the summoned Onaqui. You can see the summoned Onaqui, very similar to the one that you can recruit, has all the same qualities. I believe it's a slightly different path spread. Oh, this one, actually no, it's the same path spread, because this guy randomed fire. So yeah, you can spend blood slaves, which you will have in huge, huge quantities from your incredibly effective blood searchers, to summon your slow to recruit, hugely expensive capital only mages, and of course the summoned ones don't have any upkeep. So generally once you get up to that level, you really want to be summoning them, because you should be pulling in a couple hundreds blood slaves per turn at least by that point. And so you should be able to summon Onaqis in large, large quantities. And your Onaqis can then summon you vampires, and now you've broken into immortals, and now you are the demons. So that's early age Xibalba. In the early part of the game, you will struggle some, because your issue will be achieving good expansion while having a very high attrition rate. Xibalba also has some very good national heroes, which are a lot like Onaqui, and I didn't get them to appear, but I wouldn't really recommend taking high misfortune on Xibalba if you can avoid it, just so that you have a chance to get those heroes, because they are really very, very good. I mean, like I said, they're a lot like Onaqis, and Onaqis are very good, so if you can get effectively free Onaqui, that sounds fantastic to me. Your early expansion, as I said, and your first war will be very dangerous. Zots do not work well against players. Zots barely work against the AI. They certainly don't work very well against players. Players can counter Zots trivially easily. So, you need to get one of your low-level sacred summons online quickly, and you need to have a pretty heavy-duty bless for those sacreds to be using. Fortunately, the kind of bless that you use for sun guides and expansion will also more or less work for all of your sacreds, because all of your sacreds are basically variations on fast and or flying thing with multiple attacks. So, you know, give them strength, give them attack skill maybe. Regeneration works well on ocelotls. As long as you give them some combination of these things, they'll work fine. You could give them more nat prot if you wanted to keep them alive longer. There's lots and lots and lots of different options. And they'll all work pretty well. I would definitely recommend, as I said, an Awake Expander for Mictlan. Mictlan's Pretender God chassis options are a little bit limited, so let's dive into that real quick. So, these are the options that Xibalba gets. In terms of expanders, they have the Worm, and the Worm is actually a first-rate expander. I mean, you can make the Worm a very, very effective Awake expander. It regenerates, it has Earth magic, it's good. However, its bless options don't really synchronize very well with the Sacreds. If you just want an expander and to be safe, Earth 6 Worm is your most economical option for a safe, cheap Awake expander, and then you trash scales like that. And now you can take growth 3, and you can actually max out your other scales. This is your real cheapo option. However, it doesn't give you a good bless. All you've got is hard skin, which is fine, but it's not going to help your Sacreds kill, which is what you want them to do. Hunbalam, fire and blood cross paths. You can do a kind of bless with this. Like, you can go 6/6. You can do attack skill and blood surge or blood bond. Blood bond can actually be pretty effective for high HP Sacreds like you've got. Or you could go all the way up to blood vengeance, which means anytime they're wounded, anyone who hits them gets a morale check, and if they fail the morale check, they are sad because they take the damage right back. This requires you to drop some scales, definitely. I would probably, with Xibalba, it's a hard question. I'd probably kill that and then take like 1 magic and 3 luck, or vice versa, 1 luck and 3 magic, something like that. Probably 1 magic and 3 luck would be the way I would go. So this would work okay, and then you go superior morale as well. This is not going to help your Sun Guides stave off an early rush because it doesn't give them extra strength. And extra strength is really valuable for Sun Guides and also for Ocelotls, frankly, because they have those multiple attacks. So, could work, not really going to help you expand, and the Hunbalam is flimsy for an expander. Mediocre defense skill, mediocre protection, lots of hit points, and it spawns Jaguars. But even so, I have seen the Hunbalam in expansion tests get afflicted and even killed too many times to consider it reliable. The Demon Macaw looks like it could be a cool expander, but it's not. It's a bad idea. Yes, it has Awe, pretty high level Awe. Yes, it has 2 attacks. It's not going to work out. Hit points and protection and defense skill are all too low. It doesn't function. You could take an Earth Serpent, but you can't afford a useful bless with an Earth Serpent. You could take a dragon. You can afford a little bit more of a useful bless with a dragon. You could get a regen dragon. That wouldn't hurt you too much. But overall, I would go with the Teotihuacan. More expensive, but fantastic paths. And spawns a bunch of chaff to die for her safety in every battle. So I think the Teotihuacan is kind of the way to go. It lets you get regen. It lets you get a blood bless. It lets you get either fire shock resistance or more strength or hard skin, whatever you think is more valuable. You could easily, if you wanted to, go with not hard skin. Go with strength of the earth ×2 and then like blood surge. That's a very powerful offensive bless. Now you have to trash some scales in order to pay for it. Like you have to drop all of those, and then also you have to go negative on something. At this point, I'd probably go like Misfortune 1, kick Dominion up to 6, stick with that, something like that. That would work out really, really well for you. Because you're likely not going to get your heroes, but later in the game, you have a chance still. You do have a chance. And later in the game, regen, blood surge, 2 times strength Onaqis are going to be a nightmare, an absolute nightmare for people to deal with. The other alternative, you can drop one of the strengths of the earth. You can either go fire shock resistance, which is what I went for, more of a defensive bless, or you could go 1 strength and 1 reinvigoration, which after the blood surge procs means they're reinvigorating at +2, which is a pretty good place to be. So there's options. Overall, I do think the Teotihuacan is the best option. For chassis, number of blesses you can do. You also have some national immobiles, the Statue of the Bloody Mother and the Colossal Head. They're good bless chassis, but I wouldn't take them because they can't expand. And without an expander, you as Xibalba are A, not going to be able to expand very well, and B, you're going to be very, very vulnerable to rushes. People are going to bully you because in Dominions 4, before the introduction of recruitment points and some other changes to recruitment, Xibalba was widely considered to be broken in half, like incredibly broken, because these shitty Xibalban units could be recruited in any fort at any time with no real limit. because they cost almost no resources and they didn't have recruitment points. So you could be pumping out 10 or 20 from a forest, as opposed to the 4 or 5 you can do now. And so you could form huge bat swarms of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds in year 0, and nobody could really stop you. On top of that, the way flying units calculated who they were going to attack was a little bit different, and so they more reliably hit where you wanted them to hit, if I recall correctly, and that made them also more dangerous. But in any case, that's Xibalba. Very, very light infantry. Scorpions, pretty decent units. A lot of magic variety, not much of it very powerful except for death and blood. Xibalba really is a death and blood nation, kind of a sideline in fire, a little bit of nature, that kind of thing. But it's death and blood. You have more earth as a sideline than anything, actually. And that's really valuable because you can use that to boost the prot of your units, which is their main failing. The main place in which Xibalban units fall down is that they're naked, and so they die like flies. If you can get past that, if you can get past the early expansion phase, if you can manage to secure a solid amount of territory and keep yourself looking scary enough that your neighbors don't gang up on you, Xibalba can be very, very powerful in the mid and late game because of all of their sacred summons and because of all of their cheap, efficient access to blood hunting and blood magic. As Xibalba, you should be pulling in a ton of blood slaves every single turn, starting from fairly early in the game. Because these guys, the Onaqui, since they count as blood 2 for the purpose of blood hunting, they're raking in more blood slaves than pretty much anybody else can, even before you get construction 4 and start building sanguine dowsing rods. Once you hand one of these guys a sanguine dowsing rod, he's effectively a blood 3 mage for the purpose of blood hunting. And not many other people are hunting with blood 3 mages, at least not for 70 gold. Like, Hinnom is hunting with blood 3 mages, but their blood 3 mages are capital only, slow to recruit super combatants. And they also kill population and cause unrest, extra above what they do to blood hunt. So you can pull in the blood slaves as fast as, if not faster than, pretty much anybody else. Maybe Lanka can beat you, but maybe not. So go hard into blood, take an Awake Expander, get a big ol' bless. If necessary, you can trash your skills more than this. You could do that and use the extra points to get, I don't know, some other thing. I don't think it would really be worth it, to be honest, but you could get, like, you could grab some fire to get attack skill as a bless. You could get that 1 extra point of earth to get the hard skin if you wanted, or 3 times reinvigoration, or 2 strengths of the earth. This would be fine, to be honest. The only skill you really, really need is growth 3. You can total everything else. I like to take magic on Xibalba because Xibalba has a lot of cheap mages that have low recruitment point totals, and so magic 3 is, you know, a much bigger deal for them. But if necessary, you can take a point of drain or 2. It won't hurt you that much. The important things are that you have the super combatant and that you have the big thick bless for all of your summoned sacreds, because those summoned sacreds are going to be your armies in the mid and late game. Your armies are going to be composed almost completely of them. You're not going to really bother recruiting a whole lot of Zots at that stage of the game. So in any case, I hope this was useful or interesting, or hopefully both of those. And I'm going to try to get into doing more nation analyses. I've sort of gotten out of the habit because I've been busy with so many other things, other games, Games of Dominions, the subscribers game, which is going on now, and it's a lot of fun so far. But I want to get back into doing some of these. I do plan to continue until I do every nation. It's gonna happen. It's gonna take a while, but stay tuned and we will get there eventually. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see all of you in the next video.